everyone. Welcome to the Healing Mics Live presented by Takenya K Worldwide Podcast. I am your host, certified transformation life coach, international speaker, author, and business owner, Takenya K Johnson. I'm so grateful that we have this opportunity to share in this sacred space tonight. Joining us tonight is YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn. Tell us where you are watching from. We would love to hear from you. What state, what country are you visiting here on live with us tonight? Sharing in this live, we have four phenomenal women that is going to bring us encouragement, clarity, support, and a reminder that healing is possible. Tonight, it's all about real conversations, real healing, and real growth. Healing Mics was created because I believe that there is a certain conversation that must be brought from private pain into a safe, intentional space. Tonight, we're going to talk about some of those wounds. Some people are carrying a lot of wounds that they don't have language for. Too many people are just surviving in silence, and people are looking for a way out. And tonight, we have some phenomenal women who are going to help you with some healing tonight. The purpose of the Healing Mics is to recognize people that we need healing. This is not just a one dimensional thing. We have to address the mind, the body, and the spirit. Sometimes, we pray, but we still need support. Sometimes we believe, but we still need to set those boundaries. We're going to talk about some boundaries tonight. Tonight, I am joined by four phenomenal women who are aligned with this mission. And today, we're going to come from a space that is from compassion, from truth. We're going to use some practical tools to help humanity to move forward. I will tell you, I'm going to give a disclaimer before we begin. I want to remind everyone that tonight's conversation is intended for education. It's intended for encouragement and general information. It does not replace your doctor orders, right? Mental health treatment, therapy, professional advice. Please contact the appropriate licensed professional in whichever area that you are needed. Respectfully, let's get ready to dive in. Let me introduce the lineup for tonight. Tonight, we're going to hear from Regina Lacking. She is a lifestyle health practitioner and the founder of Doing Life Well. Dr. Amanda Rice, that's the Tatted MD. We're going to hear from Felicia Kelly Brookins, mental health advocate. She's an author, strategist, and my homegirl Tam. She is the transformation. She's an author. She's a speaker. We're going to hear from all of these phenomenal women tonight. Welcome, ladies, to the Healing Mic Live with Certified Transformation Life Coach Kenny K.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for
Yes.
having me this evening.
Yes, let's just dive right in, ladies. Let's talk about individual conversation. I always try to start with one question that I want to pose to each of you. So, when you hear the word healing, what does healing mean to you in this present season of your life? We'll start with Felicia.
Thank you. Healing, when I hear that word, I think first of all about my spirit. Because to me, that's where the healing begins. There are, I believe, wounds that medicine can't reach. And no matter how much medication you take, until you heal your spirit and your soul is healed, you can't move forward the way that you need to into your full purpose, the way that you're supposed to.
Mm, yeah. What about you, Tam?
So healing comes from a lot of places personally for me. And when you come out of coming from example survival mode, I think it comes from a, a transition. So when you talk about healing, you got to pull back the layers a bit and try to dissect of what I'm healing from. So healing it comes from a sacred place, but it's also coming from a space that's kind of not renewed, but also founded again. So it's building back, pulling back the layers, and un, un, revisiting basically all those wounds that you have so you to move forward.
Yeah. All right. Regina, what about you?
I would say that healing is
what my philosophy is, and that is recovering the recoverable. And so,
Mhm.
whatever we've gone through, that healing looks like I'm going to recover whatever I'm supposed to, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, or financial. I have the capacity and the ability to recover that. And that's what healing looks like for me.
Mhm. Let's see from the tatted MD, Dr. Amanda.
Well, I have to agree with most of what was said. Literally, healing is from, I always say, from the inside out. So I think even from the physical aspect, from real life, I always think about a wound. And seriously, a wound is not healed by us covering up with just a band-aid. That only covers it up. So it's important that in healing, we start from the inside and allow it to heal appropriately, because then not only will you heal, you will also be less subject to having that same injury again. So until it heals appropriately, then you will have an issue and you won't be able to handle the weight the next time it comes around.
Mm. Thank you, ladies.
Said so
I
well from the
appreciate.
doctor. That was
Woo, yeah.
good. Shoot.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate all of those answers that
Yeah.
healing, it doesn't look exactly the same for everyone, you know. For one person, healing may look like finally speaking, you know, for another, it may look like resting, you know, for someone else, it may look like I need to set a boundary. It may look like returning to counseling because some people need counseling. It may be returning to
Absolutely.
a physician, at MD. Hey, it may be forgiving yourself. It may be
Yes.
rebuilding in confidence. I've had to rebuild, you know, with confidence this go round because I've had some rounds, baby. Some
Right,
rounds. I've
right.
had some
Yep,
rounds.
yep,
For
yep.
me, it's sometimes accepting what has ended in my life. You know, that's
Mm,
what healing
Most
looks like
definitely.
for me. Yeah.
that's
Yep.
good.
hmm
That's good.
Yeah. So let's dive into tonight's conversation. We're going to start off with Regina. Regina, the healing the whole person. You know, one feature that I will always say about Regina. Regina always has this smile on her face. She has this huge smile on her face. You know, sometimes that helps out when you're dealing with people, especially when you're trying to heal, right? Sometimes that smile will take you to a different place. You know, it'll get you out of that stagnant position that you're in. It'll get you out of that slump. So our first featured guest tonight is Regina, Regina Lacking. She helps people to understand the mind, the body, the emotions, the lifestyle, and the spirits that are connected. And somewhere where we try to heal in one area, Regina is helping us not to ignore other areas in our lives. And so we're going to address some of those emotions, but we're not going to neglect our bodies, right? Regina is really big on this body thing. You know, she and I would do these walks every day, and she just had this 31-day challenge. We're going to talk about that 31-day challenge we just all went through, and we're going to address some things tonight. And so please help me to welcome Regina Lacking to the stage tonight.
Thank you
Thank
so much for having me. It is truly a pleasure to be in this space with these phenomenal sisters we all have a heavy charge. And so collectively, I'm excited for this opportunity.
Yeah, so Regina, I want to begin at the foundation. You know, it is so important because many people have learned to separate themselves into these pieces. You know, they love to dissect, you know, the whole entire body. And we know that we treat the body and sometimes it's disconnected from the mind. You know, I'm really big on mind, body, and spirit. You know, I did a book back in either 2019 or 2020, and it was about the mind, body, and spirit. And I was talking about a woman laced with fire. This is something that I call the Proverbs 31 woman, but that's a woman that's laced with fire. And so when I did that book, I had in mind God had given me mind, body, and spirit for this particular woman and how she was going to navigate. And so you mentioned somewhere, Regina, where you have to connect our experiences and our bodies. I remember you did a live that I heard you when you mentioned that. And so I want to ask you this question. How can stress How can grief, the trauma that we all go through, these emotional exhaustions, how can it begin to show up in our body physically?
Listen, it is a thing that we don't pay attention to because we normalize things that we should not be normalizing.
Mhm.
When your head is hurting, that's potentially stress in your body. People don't even recognize or even have a clue that they have elevated blood pressure because they've been running on a hamster wheel, they've been burning the midnight oil, and that is the expectation. Again, we've normalized just doing and doing and doing. And
Mhm.
so it shows up in our bodies with high blood pressure. It shows up in our bodies with inflammation, and it's not gout, it's inflammation, you know? It shows up in our bodies when the cortisol continues to be released and we're trying to figure out, everybody want to come ask me, can you just give me the 7-day plan to lose this weight? It's not even about the weight. It's about the invisible weight that you're carrying that's being unaddressed. And so it shows up in our physical health in a number of ways, particularly in our high blood pressure. And that's a whole conversation. High blood pressure shows up in type 2 diabetes. Your body responds to all the things that you ignore. Your body's still going to respond. And that's a hard reality. There are so many preventatives, but we don't stop. We don't pause enough to bring awareness to even know these things. People won't even check their blood pressure because they fear what they're going to find out. But I'd rather you deal with the discomfort now than the disease later.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm. So help us to understand how the body and how it communicates, and so that we can acknowledge these emotions that you know that are in our bodies. How do we do that? You know how people say when you ask them how they're doing, they always say, "Oh, I'm fine." I'm fine. But then you can tell when something is going on with somebody, even when they say, "Oh, yeah, I'm fine." So help us with that.
Yeah, so if we've been around people long enough, we pick up on the body signs. Your body language speaks louder than what you'll ever say. You can say I'm fine all day long and you are in a miserable place. You are chronically stressed. You're just navigating that chronic stress. And so we ignore, the first thing would be to stop ignoring what you experiencing. Stop ignoring your feelings. It does not make it okay when you say it just because you say it's okay. That is not it. Because people don't realize there are more, and the Tad MD can co-sign or give some research or some evidence to this. But people have more heart attacks right before they wake up and
Mm.
around the holidays, chronic stress. And so it's just a point of where the number one thing I would encourage people to do is to pump the brakes and pause. Pay attention to your body. If you're not feeling well, that is communication. People like data. That's data. Just because it's not a number does not mean it's not information for you to do something with. I'll give you all an example. I went to the doctor in November. I'm athletic, get up, working out, all these things, doing all this here. But when I go to the doctor and he tells me that if you don't start resting, here I am, less than 140 pounds, and I like to put perspective to it because you can look well enough to live and truly be sick enough to die. When I went to the doctor and he told me that if you keep on this trajectory, not that my health was bad, stuff was good, but I wasn't resting. I wasn't sleeping. I was getting up early, staying up late. Y'all know how we do it, right? Getting up early, staying up late. So there was no issue for me. Oh, I'm not tired. I'm good. I'm fine because I had gotten used to that. Now I pay attention. I pay attention to this device that says you have not stood. I pay attention to this device that says it is time for you to wind down. So putting things in place, having tools
in place, pausing, paying attention to your body. Stop ignoring your body. Stop ignoring when you're just not feeling well. Stop ignoring your tiredness. Stop ignoring your exhaustion. There is no badge of honor when you have a heart attack. There is no badge of honor when you have a stroke, because guaranteed, as Charles Barkley would say, life will go on without you. And so I had to make some immediate changes to my life, to my rest pattern, stop getting up. I had to train my body. You're not used to a new way of doing things. You're not used to not going all the time. Like work at one point in time, I was working a full-time job, 8 to 5 with the state. Shout out to the state. Praise God for retirement, though. I was working full-time with the state and as an entrepreneur with clients immediately after work. You have to prepare for that, and then you do it all over again the next day. And then you're prioritizing your wellness, right? I was not prioritizing my wellness. It appeared that I was, but that rest factor was one that I almost let sneak up on me. And I'm so grateful that I had an opportunity to have that conversation. And again, you take the information and do something with it. I started paying attention to my body.
So I want to speak to the caregivers, the leaders, the mothers, the wives, the professionals, the strong friends, who constantly they're showing up for everybody else. So how many people do you think, well, it's probably a lot of us, so how do you think people that care for others, but they feel guilty when it's time to care for themselves? Why is that?
That's a huge thing. I hear that all the time. And it's almost, I don't want to use the word cliches, but it's like we take care of everybody else. But again, the reality of it is, if I don't take care of Regina, when Regina drops,
Absolutely.
what happens? And so I understand from a caregiver perspective, I took the responsibility of being the external caregiver for my dad when he was ill, very ill. And let's top that a little bit further. My dad had a mental health condition as well. So put that with a comorbidity, right? And so trying to navigate that, keep my sanity and navigate that. So I even had with my dad, who had a lot going on, I had to put some boundaries in place. So at a certain time, we're not going to be able to keep doing certain things. Because what we tend to do as caregivers, because we are caring by nature, we're loving by nature, and we teach people how to respond to us. The more we do, the more they're going to allow us to do, and the less they're going to be willing to do for themselves. Now, I will say this. There are situations where you may be the only child and you're caring for a parent, or you're in a marriage and it's almost like you in a partnership and you don't want working with these children, or whether it's the husband or the wife. It could be one-sided. One of the things I talked about today was social health on my live this morning. Who's in your ecosystem? So a lot of times we don't tap into resources and people that we have access to because we are accustomed to being the go-to person. I'm the go-to person. Everybody needs me. And so there's an unintended thought process behind that, because I am this person. I like being this person. There's some certain accolade that come with being that person, but at the expense of what? I was talking with a guy last year who had a conversation about sometimes, and it hit so hard that I did a month-long series on it. Sometimes you have to let it break. Nobody wants to hear that. But sometimes if you step back, somebody will step up. But as long as you continue to step up, no one will step up to support. There are families, and I experience this, I hear it, I get it all the time. I don't have time. However, I asked the question, have you connected with your brother? Well, now he ain't gonna do it, but have you asked your brother. You like taking mama to the doctor because then I'm the daughter that do all these things. There is a certain level of I'm that person. And so I would invite people. Here's your permission if you need permission. Tap into your ecosystem. Tap into the people around you. They don't sometimes people don't even know your need because we're so and it's okay not to put your I'm not saying put your business out there, but people you are in community with, are we tapping into our community?
Mhm. Yeah. Well, before we go any further, talking about the whole person, I need to know something, Regina. So you spend so much time teaching other people about wellness, but when Regina needs to completely, check out or to recharge, what are you doing? Are you sleeping? Are you eating something good? Are you turning the phone off? Are you going somewhere? Are you telling everybody, please leave me alone? What are you doing? What does Regina do?
I'm so glad you asked. Listen, I don't wait because it's a lifestyle for me. It is a lifestyle. I actually have a t-shirt that says intentionally unavailable.
Mhm.
And I have a second t-shirt that says unbothered, and I wear them. Okay. So for me, I really build it into my life so I don't have to wait for the weekend. I don't have to wait for a girls trip. I don't have to wait until it's time to go somewhere because I prioritize my wellness. There are certain things that I have put in place intentionally because you trying to wait for the weekend and the weekend is not guaranteed. What am I doing today? What did I do today? I love listening to jazz, instrumental jazz music. And so I will just turn on instrumental jazz music and I'm doing whatever I'm doing, which means that is absolutely nothing, right? And so, but nothing is something that gives me what I need. I don't have to be on the phone. I don't watch TV. People have their pleasures, whatever they are, but I do value my rest. I value my sleep. When I am off, there is no such thing as girl, why you sleeping in? It's not a such thing as sleeping in. I am asleep and I wake up when I wake up, turning the alarms off. I travel so much already. There's no, let me go. I already travel enough, Jesus. Okay. And I'm grateful. No complaints about, no complaints about the travels. But if you don't build into your daily rhythms, my daily rhythm is my nutrition. I make sure I'm doing those things that I prioritize every single day, right? For the most part, I prioritize those things. I prioritize my sleep. I'm gonna get that sleep. Okay. I'm going to work out, whether I don't care if I'm traveling. That is not an excuse. I was out of town. That is not an excuse. My wellness is my priority. And so what I for Regina, because I value my health, I invest in what I value, and that is a lifestyle. That's not a weekend thing. I got some stuff coming up, but I'm not waiting on that stuff. If you don't build it into your everyday, when you do go, when I was in the workspace, I'm gonna say this: people would be afraid to take off because they're afraid of what they're gonna come to when they come back. No, ma'am, and no, sir. You adding all that? No, ma'am, no, sir. So my invitation for myself is I've built a wellness plan. Like people build a financial plan, they build a career plan. I have a wellness plan, and it involves me being intentional with these things every day. Every day.
So I want to ask you this before I close out your segment. How can faith support healing while still allowing room for like medical care, therapy, healthy habits, and professional support?
How can I couldn't hear the first part? Did you say
How can
faith?
faith support healing
Oh,
while you're
absolutely.
allowing? Mhm.
Look, absolutely. So that's where it starts. Third John 1 and 2 says, I pray that you will prosper and be in good health, even as your soul shall prosper. And
Yes.
so what I have found is that if you are not grounded and centered, and if you don't have a true ecosystem that recognizes who God is and who God is in your life, there is no quote unquote healing. That's why people say there is no healing. Yeah, because by his stripes I am healed. So I am. And so I believe in Jesus and a good therapist if you need one.
Yes.
But everybody don't need a therapist. You might need Jesus and a coach. And so you might need Jesus and a ear to lean on. And so when I speak to faith-based populations or communities, when I speak to faith-based communities, your pastor, unless your pastor is trained in mental health, your pastor can cover you in prayer, and he need to be trying to make you a referral, because that is not his line. That is not her line. Unless they're trained in behavioral health. I'm from the South, so, and I know we're in a worldwide space, but down here in the South, we will pray you under the pew and won't get therapy and wonder what's really going on. I vehemently disagree with that. If you need a mental health therapist, a licensed provider, faith says go do that, because guess what? God gave them those skills and abilities. He said, to some I gave to be apostles, some I gave to be teachers, some I gave to be encouragers. We don't all have the same gifts. It is he that gave us these gifts to manifest and be effective in the earth. So you don't just go somewhere and say, oh, I'm just going to pray and fast. Okay, pray and fast and get you a therapist. Okay, pray and fast and get you a coach. Okay, pray and fast and be in community. Because Jesus had 12, then there was 3, then there was John, but everybody needed Peter too.
Come on now. Yes, come on now. Regina,
I don't believe in dismissing the reality. A lot of times we dismiss the reality that people are going through some very difficult, dark stuff that you seeing your pastor will not move you down the road.
Thank you so much for reminding us that healing is not just simply, just us discussing this about, life, but healing must be a part of our everyday living. It's about caring about ourselves, so everybody watching TikTok, come on, join in with us. Everybody watching, I want you to place in the comments that I give myself permission to be cared for. I am going to care for my well-being in this season of my life. Before we bring Dr. Amanda up, I want to reset here for a moment. You are tuned in to Takenia K Worldwide Podcast and the Healing Lives Mic. We are streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Sharing the live where you are tuning in from. We've been talking about the whole person healing, and now we're about to shift into a connection between the emotional wellness and what shows up in our bodies. We're gonna tune in to Dr. Amanda Rice. She is the tatted MD. When emotions, this pain, it shows up in our bodies. As we continue our conversation, we're looking back over the relationships between the two. There are people who ignore the symptoms because they're so busy. Some people are afraid. Some people are unsure. Some people are embarrassed. Some people, they place themselves last when they should be placing themselves first. Others, they may not even feel safe to even have a conversation. Some people go into the medical doctor's office. They're afraid to share what's going on. But when you can share in a space with someone who cares about the human being, about humanity, they want to see your body and your mind and your spirit into alignment. And so we're going to talk with the Tatted MD about that on tonight. Welcome to the show, Dr. Amanda.
Thank you. Thank you. Excited to be here among some very powerful women. I love it.
Yes, I am so excited. I am honored to have you back in this sacred space with me tonight. From a medical perspective, how closely are medical, the emotional, and the physical health all connected?
We're literally just like that. I mean, you literally do not do anything. Your body reacts off of how you think. So people don't realize it. And we pay a lot of attention to physical when people come in. But it's so important to address people from a mental aspect as well and emotional, because I always tell people, if you think positive, then positive things will happen. And if you think positive, when negative things happen, you learn how to define the positive things that could happen. So it does not mean that life always goes well. It means that your body reacts to so many things. And just like even Regina just mentioned a second ago, we can have times where people would be under so much stress, they would be under pain, they would have all kind of changes in their mood, and all those things are associated in the same part of the brain. So your brain, frontal part of your brain controls your mood, your sleep, where you want to eat, drink, how well your mood switches. I told so if people say you acting funny, it probably has to do because you have not rested. So a lot of times you have to literally think about those portions of your brains are affected by all of that. Where the pain is, it all controls the same area. And at the end of the day, I was compared to your fight or flight. So you think about when somebody scares you, and I told them it's bad to say this way. I won't curse because I know we on here, but we literally when we have a fight or flight, I always tell people it scares the mess out of you, right?
Mhm.
It's a reason that happens. It's literally because when you have those certain chemicals that go off in your body, and it causes everything to be excited at the same time. It affects every part of your body. Your heart speeds up, your bowels speed up, you start cramping because your muscles start tightening up. You feel like you're just about to lose your mind. You can't catch your breath because your lung muscles also tighten up. So all those things have to do with your body at the same time.
Mm. So, what are some warning signs that you should never dismiss or repeatedly push through?
I always tell people literally listen to your body. You know the things that are not normal for you. And if always get a provider that hears you. So it's important for people to hear what you're saying. There are times when we say things and people don't want to hear it because it sounds normal in the spectrum of what they've seen before. So it can be something simple as chest pain. So people will have chest pain and then they're real quick to say, I have gas. I was like, well, how you know? Do you see the gas? So you have to realize that those things can mean a lot of different situations. Having a headache and waking up with a headache is not normal. I've had people that say, I have a headache every morning. I was like, well, why do you have a headache every morning? Are you not sleeping enough? Are you dehydrated? So headaches are not a normal part of life. That is not what your body's supposed to feel. Feeling tired all the time is not normal. You should not always feel like you're fatigued. There is something that needs to be paid attention to. And the same thing goes with having pains. We'll say, I've seen it at every age, which is always interesting. People wake up and say, girl, when I hit 40, everything fell apart. I was like, you got a long way to go. So, or some of, when I hit 50, when I hit 60, I guess it just depends on how you feel at the moment. But the reality is, when you think about the fact that your body has stuck with you all this time,
Mhm.
it's still there. Even if some parts don't work like they used to, it's still there. How many pieces of furniture do you have in your house that are 40 and 50 and 60 years old and you still sit on that old couch? Okay. So your body has to be able to endure those things, but you should not always have swelling in your joints. That is not normal. You should not always have pain in all parts. Like every time I wake up, I'm in pain. I can't move. Those are things that you are pay attention to. And if you're having a hard time breathing, we need to have a conversation. So if you're saying I cannot walk throughout my house without being short of breath, there is something that needs to be checked or evaluated. So don't ignore the things that your body is telling you. Your body tells you things all the time. It is literally like the author of your life if you learn to read it.
I want to discuss the communication between the patient and the healthcare provider. Some people they minimize what they are experiencing because some people are just embarrassed or either they're afraid that they don't want to believe certain things anyway. So why do you think it's so important to be honest with the healthcare provider about your emotional stress, about your mood swings, about your sleep habits, about your appetite, the pains, and all the other concerns?
Well, first of all, it's honest. It's good to be honest because you need to know the whole picture to be able to help you with your story. So, at the end of the day, there are times when people come in, and it's always funny when they start the conversation with Dr. Rice. I'm going to be honest with you, and I say, "Well, I appreciate that. Thank you." So, because you want to be able to talk to someone and tell them what is really going on. Because if you can't explain what's going on to your healthcare provider, something is wrong. Like there is no way you shouldn't be able to come in and be fully open and honest about the things that are going on because it's hard to fix anything. The example I even give, we talking about healthcare, but the example I give is I got grown kids and my kids literally, my daughter rode around in a car making noise for 2 months and they said nothing. And then finally, when she on the side of the road, she said, "You know that thing been making some noise." I was like, "Well, why didn't you say something?" She said, "Well, Mama, I thought I wasn't gonna have a car." I said, "Well, congratulations, now you don't." So,
Now you
so at the end of the day, the same thing happens when you go to the doctor's office. You know that something's not right. And I tell people over and over again, if you go to a provider and you are telling them something doesn't feel right, and they don't have a way of communicating to you what is going on, or even if they don't know, then you need to find another provider. Period. Like, people should be able to hear what you're saying, because you know you better than anybody else know you. So it's important to always be honest, no matter how difficult it is, because you don't pay attention to something, or because you ignore it, or because you don't do anything about it. I hate to be the one to break this news to you. It's a news flash, but it don't go away. But just because you ignore it, it does not go away. So I plant a hedge in the front of my house. All my flowers die. I don't know how this hedge lived. I have no idea. Nobody has cut it, and it's still there. Like, it keeps growing. So no matter how many times I walk past and act like I don't see it, it's still growing. So you can pretend like you don't see something, you don't feel something, or you don't necessarily, I don't know, don't acknowledge it. It's there either way. So it's important that we make sure to talk to the person that should have the expertise to tell you, hey, this how we can investigate it, this how we can determine what's going on. Or if they need to tell you, hey, we're going to monitor this. There are some things we do just monitor, but somebody needs to monitor it, not just you, and not Chat GPT either.
Wow. There you go. Well, y'all heard it from the tatted MD. Listen, let me ask you this, Dr. Amanda, because we're getting into some medical stuff tonight, but I've got to ask you this. When you're off duty, what's that one thing that makes you say, listen, don't ask me anything medical. I am not the doctor right now. Because, see, doctors have to take their capes off too. That's actually a perfect way for you to, I guess, get the proper rest that you need. So, what's that one thing that you do? What is it? What's that one thing that makes you say, look, listen, don't ask me nothing about medical,
I probably have several things. It's probably not
What?
one, because I've learned over time that if you do not protect your time, if you don't protect your energy, then I am no good to none of you or to my family. So I have asked women before, or it's interesting when you ask a woman, who are you? Somebody asked me before, they said, Amanda, who are you? And I started naming all the stuff I do. I was like, I'm a wife and I'm a mama. And it was like, no, that's what you do. So who are you? And what I realized at the end of the day, I'm Amanda. I was here to be a servant, but also servants need rest. So one of the things, I have a do not disturb on my phone. I warn people real quick. I said after 9 o'clock, my phone don't ring, it don't buzz, it don't do nothing. So you can call it, you can send me an email, you can do whatever you want. You will not get an answer. Except tonight, I'm on call, so I take it off. but literally, on those days, unless you're in my favorites, and all my kids are in my house, so they can knock on my bedroom door, you
Mhm.
you would not get an answer. My mama even know you don't get an answer. Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I encourage people, because people tend to want free advice. Now, don't get me wrong. I am absolutely fine with giving advice or giving some information enough. But one of the examples I said one of my mentors gave me, and I thought it was the best example ever. She said she was literally at one of her son's performances, and a friend of hers texted her a picture of a rash. And she said, she told her friend, she said, well, would you like me to answer you as a friend or as a physician? And the friend said, well, I just want to know what the rash is. So I kind of want you to answer me as both. And so she said, well, as a friend, I would say, you probably should see a doctor about that. And as a physician, I would say, well, Dr. Smith is on call, not me. You might want to call them. So one of the things that you had to learn how to protect your time and realize that, wow, at the end of the day, this is a calling. I consider it as anointing to be a servant. I am also realizing that this is my job. I have multiple things that I do, and this is part of my job. People have learned not to even call my husband phone because I wouldn't answer. So they call my husband and say, hey, can you ask your wife? He said, nah, bro, I ain't asking my wife nothing. He's like, you're not getting me in trouble tonight. I'm not asking or anything. So he even knows that when you ask questions, if it's about a baby, first time mama, some things going on, I answer questions 'cause I don't want anybody nervous or running to the ER when they don't need to. But in general, I protect my time literally by when I'm with my kids, when I'm with my family, when I'm with my parents, when I'm with myself, because I like myself too. I hang out with myself by myself. So when I'm with myself or whatever I'm doing is not associated with those things, I will literally not do anything. And the other way I protect my time, which some of them probably know because of the journey I've been on with my weight loss, when I go to the gym, my phone goes to fitness and it don't ring. It don't do nothing. It send a little message and say, "Do you want to answer this?" I say no. So
Mhm.
when I'm working out, that is my time to be with me by myself.
Yeah. You know how they say laughter really is good medicine.
Mhm.
So, what
Mhm.
guarantees to make Dr. Amanda laugh?
Well, I'm a self-proclaimed comedian. So
Okay, okay,
so I crack
okay,
I crack my own jokes, and if y'all don't laugh, I laugh by myself. But
okay,
but but
okay.
I but I think in general, what makes me laugh at the end of the day is just the excitement of seeing. So I'm an educator, so I educate future physicians and all that. And one of the things that I always tell them that keeps a smile really on my face is seeing other people do well. I love this environment. I'm like, yes, I love supporting people. I love my local folks. And what just keeps a smile on my face is seeing people do well. And when I see people struggle, I want to find a way to help them do well. So that's probably the biggest thing to make me smile. And like I said, I just laugh at my own jokes. They're probably not funny all the time, but it's okay.
Let's talk about self advocacy. I want to ask you a question here. You know, sometimes people leave appointments, they're feeling, unheard, rushed, or dismissed. How can patients appropriately advocate for themselves when they believe that their concerns have not been fully addressed?
I actually tell people when you go to an appointment, go prepared. So although I'm saying that when a person pull a list out to ask me questions, I start smiling. I was like, man, excuse me. I was like, what the hell is that? Like what we finna talk about?
Mhm.
But go to your appointment prepared. So if you have questions, you know how when you get in that space and it's time for the meeting or it's time for the opportunity for you to say something or speak up for yourself, your mind does something. I forgot everything that I was gonna ask you. So while you in a place where you're calm or when you remember it, make a little note and say, hey, I want to ask the doctor this, or I am concerned about this, or please address this. So I tell people make notes and take them to the doctor so you can have an idea of the things you want to ask beforehand. But then I also say when you're advocating for yourself, don't get mad. Don't be angry because you don't get the answers you don't expect,
Mhm.
or don't show attitude. Cause I'm be honest with you, everybody can't handle attitude like me. Like I probably literally, I will crack a joke on that. I'll be like, why you mad? Did something happen? Like, what did I say to piss you off? Like, are you hungry? We got some snacks in the back we could share. Like something. But everybody don't accept it the same way. So if you go in being aggressive and because everybody sometimes, believe it or not, I know people don't want to believe this, but some providers just don't know. They don't know the answer. And they won't say, I don't know. They go to making up stuff or they trying to make it compensate for what the answer might be. And
Mhm.
the reality is they don't know. And instead of saying, I don't know how to help you actually fix that, they'll put it back on you. And that's not the way to communicate to someone, honestly. So go into your appointment. If again, like I said earlier, if you know that something is not right, something you're concerned about, ask about it. And if they don't have an answer for you, ask them, well, who can I go to that might have an answer for me? Is there someone you can send me to, or I can talk to, or I can be in contact with that might be able to help me with this? So make sure, even if they don't have the answer, have a direction to go and ask someone else.
Hmm. Before we get ready to wrap up your segment, I want to ask you this. What is one health related decision that people should stop postponing?
Your annual exam. So preventive care is just that. It is so much easier to be proactive than to be reactive. So me trying to fix your blood pressure after you done had blood pressure for 10 years and you act like you ain't feel that headache because again, those are things that are silent killers. They don't come up to you and knock on your door and say, hey, your blood pressure high, dog. You need to go do something. No, you have to check it. So
Mhm.
Going for your preventive health visit is so important. That means like every year, not like every 5 years, like when I feel like it or something ain't wrong. Because I say it's interesting because as women will put off their health but bring everybody else to the doctor. Like they be sitting on the seat with everybody they bring because they're gonna bring their husband because that's the only way the man gonna come anyway. You got to bring them in. But then I asked, when was your last appointment? I'm gonna make my appointment. I'm finna make mine. As soon as I get time, I gotta get off work. These kids got a game. They got this. They got that. Listen, you have to make time for you. And then I had to take my own advice, truth be told, because when you have a tendency to be the caregiver, you're the person who takes care of things. You're the one who always kind of handling the whole situation, whether it's bills, whether it's home, whether it's cooking, and then you're working too. You have to make sure to take the time. It's one time a year at minimum. You go one time a year for maybe an hour or two, depending on how slow your doctor is, 3. I don't know. But you go once a year. That's 3 hours out your 365 days to go and get yourself checked, to get a preventive health checkup and all those things, screenings, whether it's mammograms, whether it's colonoscopy, whatever it is, and definitely a blood pressure, because those things could be life saving. There are so many things that can be prevented and are life saving if we just go and get it checked before it gets out of hand.
Mm. Thank you so much, Dr. Amanda, for reminding us to listen to the body and that it is not a lack of faith, that seeking help is not a sign of weakness. There may be someone watching or listening to us tonight who have delayed appointments. You have ignored those symptoms, those signs. We want to encourage you to seek your medical physician. Go in there with an open mind. Go in there. Dr. Amanda said, write those things down that you want to ask. Come prepared when you come into the to see your physician. So as we go into our next segment, I want to welcome Dr. I was about to say doctor. Well, maybe I'm speaking that into fruition for you, Felicia Kelly Brookins. Yes, we have Felicia Kelly Brookins up next. Yes, I'm speaking that into existence for you
Can I
tonight.
just say to you, I get that so much. I cannot believe
Yes,
you did that.
yes, yes. I do it a lot when I'm talking to you, Felicia. I really
I
do.
get it a lot. I
Yes,
get it a lot.
I do it a lot. So let's talk about healing through words. Our next conversation is about the power of words. It's truth, it's storytelling, it's breaking the silence. Some people are carrying so many stories, years, of embarrassing, sometimes family, friends, co-workers. They are carrying a lot of embarrassing moments that they don't like to discuss. And so tonight we want to challenge you to break the silence. Felicia has this safe space, and I'm always honored and always want to show up whenever you have these safe spaces. I am so grateful that
Thank
God
you.
gave you this vision, Felicia. So I want to welcome the author strategist, the mental health advocacy, Felicia Kelly Brookins, to the show tonight.
Thank you. It's my honor to be here. Thank you so much.
Felicia, I'm so glad to have you back with me in this sacred space. As we sit here, we're going to talk about some of the work that you do in mental health, the advocacy, and storytelling. So, one of the first questions I want to ask you tonight is how can telling or writing our stories become part of the healing process?
Well, that is a really good question to start out with because I think a lot of times that people, when they begin to write, they don't always realize that that can happen and take place. They say, I want to write my story just because, wow, you wouldn't believe the things that happened to me, and they don't realize really how those things that have happened to you affect everything that you're doing now, your relationships, your mindset. And so when they begin to write their story, uh, it's important that they realize telling their story can help them process the emotions and the trauma and things that have happened to them in the past. So what I'm saying is not only does it help them process, but it can not just help them to remember, but to help them process. Okay. So they say, I'm going to write all this stuff down that happened to me. But while you're doing that, it begins to put itself in order as to what happened. Writing about those difficult experiences can help them organize their thoughts, help them identify their emotions, even recognize some patterns, some things that they do as to why. Maybe you never really thought about it, but once you write it down and look at it, and you say, wow, I never, I didn't see it until I put it on this paper. Um, and I would also add, they don't have to write everything at once when they're doing that. Writing it is going to begin, it's like peeling back an onion. You're going to be amazed at the things that you find and discover when you start to do that. And I also want to add that when they're writing their story, their emotions, that they need to understand that they are in control of that story. Whatever trauma has occurred, whatever rejection, whatever disappointment that has happened, they are the ones that get to tell their story. No one else can define your ending or tell you what you should think or feel. You can write from the point, not just from saying, this is what happened to me, but from the point of, this is what I learned, this is how I survived it, and this is who I am becoming from it.
Mm. So, you know, many people have been taught that speaking about painful experiences, that it is disloyal. So, what happens emotionally when individuals and families, they're taught to hide, you know, the trauma, they're taught to hide the abuse, to sweep it under the rug? You know, we've heard that so many times about all of our painful experiences. So, what happens emotionally when individuals are taught to hide things?
When individuals are taught to hide things, um, they begin, I would say, to operate in that way in almost every area of their life. You may say, "Well, I love my husband so much, but I'm not gonna tell him about this right here because I don't know how he may respond to that." Um, it can sometimes, when you're hiding and people find out, it can put you in this light of somebody that's being dishonest when that really was not your intention. It's just that you remember the response or reaction from when you did tell it before and what happened. I give a good example. When I was a teenager, there were two individuals that were involved in a relationship that they should not have been involved in. And being a teenager and in the environment, I just happened to hear certain things. And so when an adult person came to me about it, me being a teenager and that person talking to me and asking me trusting that person, I told them just what I knew, you know, what I saw, what I heard, because
Mhm.
you asked me and you're the adult. Well, by doing that, they informed the person that I had talked to them. And so that person came to me and attacked me and called me all these ugly names. And from that point on, for a very long time, it was no matter what I see, no matter what I hear, I don't know, care what it costs anybody else, I will not be attacked that way again. And so with that comes, let's say, you know, you have friends and acquaintances and associates, and there are certain things that are going on. You want to talk about those things or say something, but you don't want to be attacked. And you don't want to be the person that they point the fingers at and say, you're the bad guy, you know, because you don't want to be made to feel like, oh my God, I'm a horrible person for saying that I caused all this. So when you're hiding things, it can stop you from being authentically who you need to be and embracing that unapologetically for who you are and your truth. You know, you have to have the courage and bravery to stand up and say the true thing. Sometimes say the hard thing at times. And when you've grown up hiding it, it makes it very difficult to do that. It makes it difficult for you to be that voice of advocacy. It makes it difficult for you to be person that's going to be that protector of another person or speak your truth because you don't want the negative consequences.
Mm. So, how can unresolved trauma affect future generations through their behavior, parenting, communication, the relationships, and the family expectations?
Oh my gosh. Unresolved trauma. Unresolved trauma. I just had to speak for me. It's funny now, it wasn't funny then. Unresolved trauma can teach you the wrong way to handle your relationships. Okay. Not just your platonic, your romantic relationships. Unresolved trauma can tell you that you know what? I won't let anybody else push me into a corner again. Before I do that, I'll come out fighting. And so, what does that mean? That means you, as the person I say I'm in this relationship with, may end up with some battle scars
Mm.
because I'm not going down that road again. You can end up flinching when you hear certain things. You can end up with nightmares that
Mhm.
are so strong and so real, the fear actually grips you. I can only speak for me. I always tell my husband when I married him that he saw the white dress and the veil, but he didn't see that big trunk that was coming down the aisle with me. That trunk that he didn't get to see and open up in front of him until we got married. And I would have really bad dreams and nightmares about things I'd experienced and heard and seen. Why? Because I didn't talk to someone beforehand, before I married him, to deal with that. So bless his sweetheart. He's got to be the one to come and grab me and shake me and Felicia, and pull me back
Uh-huh.
because I did not deal with that before. Unresolved trauma. I'm that person that, okay, I wore the trauma coat for a long time and didn't realize it and didn't know it. And so when I finally realized what I was wearing and I took it off, I felt so much better, so much freer. But until that time, there were people that came into my pathway, hey, cussing you out and saying something ugly and calling you an ugly name. I felt nothing about that. Why? Because I had become, in a way, numb to it being done or said to me. It became like just normal thing. It's what you do. And you imitate. You imitate this very trauma and you forget how much it affected you. And you a lot of times will repeat that same pattern with your own children and your own
Mhm.
relationship that you saw. And you do that unknowingly. It's like you forget. And if somebody brings it to your attention, I am nothing like that person. That is not me, but it is. And because you never talked to anybody and dealt with, because you didn't feel that you had a safe space to deal with it, somebody else gets the residue of that. Somebody else gets the backlash of that because you did not deal with that trauma when you should have. And so, bless your heart if you are fortunate enough to get somebody, especially if you end up being married to a person, somebody that is patient and kind and understanding to go through that with you to help you do now what you should have did a long time ago.
Mhm. Yeah. So, Felicia, you are an author, storyteller. So, I've got to ask you this. If somebody wrote a book about you, about your life, but you could not choose the title of it, what do you think that your family and your closest friend would name it?
My family and my closest friends. I think that they would name it um, Determined. A
Mm.
determined survivor. That's what I think they would name
Wow.
it. A determined survivor. Yes.
Mm.
Subtitle: The Princess of a Warrior Queen. Yeah.
All right then. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
what would the one chapter of your life that you could laugh about now, but you absolutely could not laugh about it then while you are living it, while you were living it. So what's that one chapter?
I think now, and my sisters and I, we talk a lot of times about our childhood. Um, I would say when I was a teenager, I couldn't laugh about seeing the hard times that my father went through. I love him with everything in me. He's a man that taught me unconditional love, but I watched him struggle with alcohol. I watched him struggle through drugs. I watched him struggle through trying to be a man. And as I read his story one day, years ago, years later, that he had written down, I realized that he was this way because he was taught it. You know, he had role models that told him you needed to do this, you needed to do that. This is what a man looks like. This is what a man does. And so he imitated those things, and he was in these spaces where they pulled him into these things. And to watch him struggle and go through this fight for his very life, through this addiction. At the time, it wasn't funny. I loved him regardless, but it wasn't funny. But now we can sit back and kind of laugh at some of the funny moments that we had through it, you know, with him. Because even in between all that, he was still this funny guy that loved us and showed us that he loved us. He showed us what forgiveness looks like. And most of all, he showed us that you cannot speak a person's end over themselves, because I know we're not here to talk about, you know, this ain't church. But when I tell you that God is a deliverer, and so we laugh sometimes, my sister, now when we talk about the people that will say, he'll never this, he'll never that, he gonna end up here, he's gonna end up there. But when I tell you that God gave him the last laugh, and so that to us is so, it's funny to us as we remember him and think of him in love and how God set him free. But for you to decide that you can tell where my dad is going to end up, how his end is going to be, when there is a God that knows better, that to me would be the funniest chapter. That God did it, and He has the final say.
Yeah, God has the final say. So I want people to know that healing does not always require us to tell every detail publicly, right?
Right.
So does every part of our story need to be shared with an audience, or can some parts remain private?
Well, I'm going to answer that with the very word that Dr. Lacking used, boundaries. And make no excuse and apologies for them. You do not have to tell every single thing that happened to you or occurred to you, because first of all, you want to write this from the point of a tool and who can I help, not splash your emotions all over the page and maybe re-wound somebody. So set up some boundaries before sharing your story publicly. You want to make sure that you take a moment out to just have a conversation with yourself. Because, like Dr. Rice said, you know, hey, I like to be by myself sometimes. I'm good with me. So while I'm just sitting around with me, I'll be like, Felicia, now, are you protecting your privacy or somebody else's privacy? What are we doing here? What's the real reason you're doing this? Are you emotionally ready to respond to people, Felicia? Because they're going to ask you some questions. And if you're going to be authentic and tell your true story, are you ready to tell the truth? And so, if you're not ready to expose every single thing, set your boundaries and do these things in increments. Whether you put it all in one book, book two, book three, or maybe you don't put it in the books, but when you're having a face to face conversation with a book club or on stage, maybe that's the moment that you decide that you want to share that. You also have to consider, could sharing this put me at risk or someone else at risk in my family? One of the things I always talk about when I'm talking to aspiring authors that want to tell their story, you know, you have to consider also, are there other people that could be wounded from this that don't deserve it? One of the things I shared when I was being asked about storytelling, and in that very question, telling the truth, I shared with them a story where, you know, writing about things that occurred with me. There was a young man that sexually assaulted me when I was 16. Could I have included that in that book and told his name and where he was? You know, part of me inside wanted to just blast him. But you know what I had to consider? I had to consider he has children. And kids can be so cruel and so mean. And so they don't deserve that. They don't know that, you know, about him. And it would affect his babies. And so you have to think about that when you're wanting to tell your truth also. Who else may be affected by it and how? And again, consider also, legal ramifications. Be very careful when you get ready to tell your story because it's yours. And everybody else might not want to know what part they played in it. There's a different way that you can present that very person without giving all of these identifiers because there are other people that are connected to your story that you may not have even considered. There are other people that are connected to the people that were involved in your life that don't know anything about it. And so you place them in a situation where they could be harmed or bullied in some way, especially now with social media. You have to be very careful. You can tell your truth, but tell it in a respectable manner and in a manner that shows it is part of your healing. It's not part of your revenge.
Mm. So, what is one journaling exercise or writing prompt that can help someone to begin safely exploring their story?
I would say go back to open up your journal and first of all, talk to yourself. Write down in that journal, why am I telling this story? Am I telling this because I want to start my healing journey? Or am I telling this just because I want to expose somebody and I'm just
Mhm.
mad? Or do I need to still maybe have somebody to answer for this pain that they caused me? You know, um, am I wanting somebody to validate that? What is the reason that I want to tell my story? Is it to help somebody? Answer that first because when you know your why, that is the direction that you're going to write it from. It can either show in those pages that you are out to hurt and expose somebody, or it can show that this is what I learned, this is what I came through, and I have become this person, and you can too. So am I writing to heal or am I writing just to hurt and expose? Journal that first and then go back and read that and read it a couple of times and then decide if you're ready to open up your laptop and start typing that out and start to get the therapy that you need as well. Because like Regina said, and I loved, I said, she must be in my closet. She made me want to put on my t-shirt that said Jesus and therapy is okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah, ask yourself that. Know exactly why your intention determines the tone and voice of your book.
Mhm. So, Felicia, before we get ready to close out on your segment, I want to ask you this. What would you say to the person who believes that their story is too painful, it's too embarrassing, it's just too ordinary to even matter? What would you say to them?
I would say to them, first of all, every story is unique. Every story is unique. And no, it's not too embarrassing because somebody out there that's been through that, that feels the way you do, needs for you to write the book first so they can see that it's not. Somebody out here feels that what happened to them is embarrassing to them,
Mm.
that they're so ashamed of it that they can't tell it and they hold it and it's coming out in all areas of their life. But then when you decide, you know what, I am not going to let what happened to me keep me in the dark. Somebody out there needs this book so they can step out. This book is going to heal somebody else. So it's not that it's too embarrassing. I just need you to be brave and courageous enough to write that book because there are maybe hundreds of people waiting on you to set them free.
Mm, mm, I love that. You
Yeah.
know, Felicia, thank you for reminding us that there is
Thank
power
you.
in finding language for what was once left us in silence. You know, your story does not have to remain in a place of shame. You know, with wisdom, with those boundaries that we talked about, and the support, it can become a part of our liberation. Everyone watching us
Absolutely.
tonight on social media platforms, TikTok, hang on in there with us, Facebook, we're on YouTube Live, Instagram, LinkedIn. Your voice matters. I'm really big on your voice matters. Hey, we're about to bring in Tamara Clark. We're talking about breaking burnout and becoming whole. Our next conversation is for the person who has been surviving for far too long. And we want to dive into this. You are now dependent. You're getting these things done. You're showing up for everyone else. You're carrying a lot of responsibilities and you just keep on moving. But privately, you are depleting yourself. You're disconnected. You're resentful. You're exhausted. There's some uncertainty that is surrounding you. See, transformation is not always about creating a completely different person. Sometimes it means returning to the person that survived, that caused you to forget that person in the get go. Please welcome Tamara Clark. She's a founder of Transform with Tam, speaker, coach, and transformation. That's the homegirl there. Tamara, thank you for being here in the sacred space with me tonight.
Appreciate being here. Thank you.
I am so honored to have you here. Tam, you and I met, was it last year or year before last? At a pop-up shop. Yeah, we
It
met.
did. Yes,
Yeah,
we
we
did.
connected. Yeah, we connected
Mhm.
there. I was so glad. I said when she came to my table, I knew she had this accent. I said, "You gotta be from Los Angeles." I just could hear it. I could hear it in her voice. I said, "You gotta be
You
from Los
did.
Angeles."
You
And she
did.
said,
You
"Yep." She said, "Yeah." She said, "But I stay in different places." Then she said, "Atlanta." She said, "I'm here in Mississippi." I said, "Girl, you just all around the world." Yeah, but we
Mhm.
connected. I was so glad to connect with you at that pop-up shop. So let's just dive in, Tam. How can someone recognize the difference between ordinary tiredness and genuine burnout?
So, ordinary tiredness and genuine burnout, you would get them confused, right? Because I believe everyone, especially us women, we do it all, right? So we can just consider that as just our day-to-day lifestyle, right? We get up in the morning, we may have families, we may have, you know, parents that we take care of. We have a job, we're a spouse, and etc. So we pair all of those together, and at the end of the day, we may consider that just being exhaustion because those are just things that we have to do in our day. However, we don't realize that we have other things that are on top of us, right?
Mhm.
Uh, it could be things that has happened in your past that's weighing sitting on you. It could be so many other things outside of your day to day, and it's going to be difficult for you to decipher between exhaustion and you're carrying on additional weight from your past. So you have to kind of just sit and figure that part out. And I love everyone kind of touched on it. Regina touched on it, Amanda touched on it, and even Felicia touched on it as far as just pausing. And when you pause, you have to give yourself that time to kind of decipher between the two. Am I tired because of my day to day, or am I tired because I have additional weight that I'm actually holding on to? And how do you figure that out? Well, first, therapy is everything, right? But again, outside of therapy, you got to have that self truth with yourself, with realizing what is it that I'm minimizing and within myself that has affected me today, right? And that minimization could be baggage that you're carrying, things that might have been happening in past relationships. It could have been things that happened to you when you was a child, and etc. And in that time, you have to figure out, but you can't really figure out between the two. But 9 times out of 10, you know it's coming from past baggage. And I believe Felicia hit on it a little bit. When she got married, she had trunk, right?
Mhm.
That she
Mhm.
walked down that aisle with. Well, basically, you're walking down just your life with all kind of baggage and all kind of things that you got weighing on top of you. So at the end of the day, I think every day you have to give yourself that morning pause. And for me, I'm an early riser. I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and most people think I'm hitting the ground running. But however, that 30 minutes to an hour, that's that time for me. And that time for me is for me to decipher, am I exhausted because I got too much on my plate? Or am I exhausted because I have some things that I need to let go and I need to release? And at that time, I'm able to decipher maybe it is some additional things that I'm carrying that I'm weighted on, or that I need to release. But at that time, I'm able to sit in my corner, sit in that dark place to understand and really feel. Because you got to feel instead of avoiding what the issue is. And once you can understand and decipher between the two, you'll be able to really, really hone in and just say that I'm tired from doing
Mhm.
too much, or I'm tired because I got a lot of baggage that I'm avoiding, that I need to feel and I need to release to move on, to make everything just a little bit lighter for me for the day.
Mhm. Mhm. Kind of reminds me of that Erica Badu song, Bag Lady. You know, you
Hmm.
gonna miss your bus carrying all them bags.
Girl, girl, don't have
Uh-huh.
me singing because I'm the karaoke queen and y'all tapping into my Friday night karaoke. So,
Uh-huh. Yeah. Hmm. So why do you think strong, responsible, these dependable people, they often struggle to admit that they are depleted?
I think it's a couple of things. One, they feel responsible, right? They hold that quote unquote badge of being that person to go to. So
Mm,
that's part of their lifestyle. That's who they are generally. And they've probably been given or assigned that to them since they were younger. So them having that as far as being that leadership role, they I'll say they consider that to be who they are as opposed to a responsibility. So they own it. They own it, they live it, and they're not able to determine the two. So once they live it, they breathe it, and they're not able to let go of who they are. And it becomes who they are, right? And once they release that, or they don't feel like they're that person to go to, they lose their whole identity. So basically, they given themselves that identity of who they are as far as that responsible one. And if they don't have that anymore, they may not, or 9 times out of 10, they feel as if they aren't needed anymore, right?
hmm. Yeah. So let's tap on that for a minute. That survival identity. You know, you've spoken about returning to the woman survival made you forget. What does that statement mean to you personally?
So personally, I think being a young mother, I'm a mother of 4 young men now. Um, I birthed my first son when I was very young, and had my last son when I was in my later 20s. So, being a mother, having that full responsibility, having that responsibility of being a mother, being the only provider, being a single mother, I had those types of hats. So, with that, being young, I did not really have all kind of skills that most people or some people may have had being a parent. So I had to learn along the way, and basically most parents do. However, I didn't have those other types of skills as far as money management skills. I didn't have those skills as far as um, just learn knowing how to be a full parent and juggle between the two. Um, I had a lot of projection that sat on me. I had a lot of things as far as having the shame by being a mother of four boys at the time, not being married. So all of that came on me to where every time we struggled, I survived. And each time I survived, I gave basically surviving, I gave myself, I had this chaos mechanism. So being a survivor, I was used to the chaos to where my mindset wasn't thinking to where I wanted to get to the next side of the level. I was just used to resolving the issue and living moving forward. I was good with putting out the fire, but I was not good with not eliminating the fire and making sure the fire didn't happen again. So that survival mode was who I was. And it was something that I could not let go. And I didn't know how to let go because that's all I knew. That was basically my identity, and it became a cloak for me. And sometimes you even hear it in music, right? So when you're younger, you're thinking, oh, I'm a survivor, so that's the badge you want to give yourself, because, oh, I'm strong, oh, I can accomplish whatever I need to accomplish. But you don't realize, with being a survivor, your skills are limited. You only know how to survive. Your mind doesn't go to the next level of how I can be proactive. I'm more reactive. And that's where I live as far as being a survivor. And you have to learn how to let that go. And I like to say, I had to retire survivor in order for me to move on to the transformation, because survivor did not have those skills as far as thinking ahead. She only knew how to react. She didn't know how to do anything else but react. She had great reacting skills. She had no other type of skills as far as thinking forward, how to eliminate certain things. It was chaos was good, and I'm good at eliminating and resolving chaos. I can put out a fire, and I'm not needed if I'm not surviving. So taking that and realizing, for one, I had to release her. So once I was able to release her and face the truth that Survivor was not the best person for me to get to that next level.
Mm. So let's talk about rebuilding. Many people are afraid to change because they feel like, where they started it, that this is like all of their life or their entire life, or it may be, their entire life may be over. So, what does it mean to rebuild from the experiences that you had instead of believing that you are starting from nothing?
So I like to say, you're not starting from nothing. Basically, you're starting with experience, right?
Mm,
So
mm,
how can you rebuild if you don't have experience?
mm,
And that's basically it. You take what you learn, you take the experience, and you use that to rebuild, but you're rebuilding better. You're not, you have a foundation. However, you're rebuilding with a new mindset. You're rebuilding with a new identity. You can't rebuild. Now we're not basically getting some old wood and refurbishing it. No, we have to rebuild. We have to let go of certain things. We have to make sure that we still have that foundation, because some people think that, oh, okay, I got to find my peace, or, oh, I have to refine something in order for me to rebuild. No, you just have to basically unburied what God had created and who you are, and move on with that. Because what was buried was the projection. What was buried was the shame, and all of that was on top of that individual of who you were. So once you uncover that, you can rebuild with the solid foundation with who you really were, and move on as far as creating that life that you were meant to have.
yeah. So, Tamara, you're the transformation homegirl. So,
Yeah.
I'm putting the homegirl on the spot now. So when you have reached your limit and burnout is knocking on your door, what version of Tamara shows up?
Ooh,
Are you
ooh, and that's
quiet?
so
Are
good.
you the don't call me Tamara? Are you the Netflix Tamara? Are you everybody get away from me Tamara? Like what Tamara shows up?
So, my sister might be like, girl, you need to call me in right now so I can tell you what show up. However, I think I am basically I am a homebody. So I like my backyard. I'm a plant girl, and I became a plant girl with after the pandemic, and I think pandemics kind of force you to do all kind of things. So I am that girl who likes to just stay at home and stay in her backyard. I am a DIYer, so I'm still a busybody, but a busybody on my own terms. I like to do things for myself. I am that person to where, unfortunately, I don't know, I love who I am, but I'm not the type of person, if something breaks, I don't want to pay for somebody to do it. So I'm going to figure it out and do it myself. But I'm that person that peace for me is just doing my own thing as far as just crafting and just having my solitude to where I could be just sitting at home making me a meal, but I have to have that cute little plate, that cute little glass, that cute little fork and knife with my nice little napkin, and I have that meal for with myself. So that's my form of Tam, and how I get my peace back together is just doing things for myself.
Mhm.
If that makes sense. A lot of people like to say, oh, I just sleep. I do sleep, Regina. I do sleep because I go to bed about 7 o'clock, 7:30. So I'm way past my bedtime.
Yeah.
So I do go to bed. I get my 8 hours, but
Mhm.
I like to just kind of hone in and just have some peace to myself. But I'm doing something that's a little productive and things that I like to do.
Yeah. So let me ask you a mindset question.
Yeah.
What beliefs commonly keep people trapped in burnout, the over functioning, people pleasing, or is it self neglect?
I think what keeps people burn out is, again, always they already have this perception, if they're the person that's always doing something, or that responsible person, that's who they are, right? That's who they
Mhm.
projected to be. So it's very difficult for them to let that go, regardless of if it's the burnout. But they're feeling needed, and that need comes with the people pleasing. That need comes with being that responsible one, and it comes to the point to where it becomes a little bit overwhelming, because of that responsibility that people may have owned, or may have been given that responsibility. And I don't, that time, that part to letting that go, I think it comes with them really being honest with themselves on the burnout. And again, I think all the ladies mentioned setting their boundaries, right? So they have to learn and adapt to what their boundary is, and figure out what that line is. And once they can draw that line, then it goes with them learning how to say no. And I think we all as women find it very difficult to say no, even though my no is, I'm Pistol Pete with my no right now.
Come on
But
now.
I think it's difficult, right? We want to be able to be that person and be there for that person. We do not want to be that individual to um, let someone down. But I think it's learning how to say no. So I tell people all the time, if you cannot say the no directly, figure out a way to say, well, at this time my calendar is full, or I may not have the capacity to get you to take care of this today, but maybe I can take care of it tomorrow. Push it back a little bit, and although you may feel some kind of way because you can't do it today, at least that gives you enough time to figure out how to say no tomorrow, and then you work with another way to say no. But it gives you 24 hours to kind of give yourself to get a little punch, a little pep talk to tell
Mhm.
someone no. So I think that you have to take your baby steps and identify certain things for you to kind of alleviate the two.
Mm. Tamara, before we get ready to close out your segment, I want to ask you to speak directly to the woman who knows she cannot continue living the same way because she's afraid of change.
Yeah. So what I would love to say to you is this: change is difficult. And when you have a habit, when you have certain type of responsibilities, it's very difficult to let everything go. But one thing I will have to say is a couple of things that you have to do to transition to that, and you have to tell yourself the truth, whatever that is, whatever that truth is. That's your first step to healing. You have to feel instead of avoiding. So you have to feel whatever that is for you to let that go. The grief, the anger, the disappointment, the fear, the shame, all of that, you have to feel it, you have to release it in order for you to let go. And once you release it, it takes time. And once you, after that time occurs, you have to make sure in the release that you're letting go the guilt, you're letting go of the projection, you're letting go of the expectation of everyone else. Because the only way you're going to find you is if you let all of that go. And you have to change your story. Your story comes into that. And when you change your story, it doesn't mean that you're forgetting or you're avoiding or anything of that nature, but you're changing it because the person that you uncovered deserved to be to she deserves to be taken to that next level. And your boundaries, you have to have that there. You got to set your boundaries and you got to keep the promise that you've been telling yourself all this time, as opposed to putting everybody else's promises and making commitments to yours, to them. You have to be sure that you're keeping the promise to yourself, which is very difficult, but you got to give yourself some grace. And once you give yourself that grace, you're going to find that peace, you're going to find that desire, and you're going to find that determination that you need. So let it go. And once you do that, you'll start seeing a little bit light at the end of the tunnel.
Mm, I love it. Tamara, thank you for reminding us that becoming whole may require us to stop glorifying exhaustion and stop confusing this constant productivity with purpose. You know, everybody watching us tonight, if you want to TikTok, write in the comments that I do not have to abandon myself to feel valuable. We are about to wrap up this part of the segment, and we are about to go into our group conversation. Ladies, I want to bring everybody into this conversation right now. We're about to talk about lifestyle, some physical health, emotional wellness, storytelling, burnout, all those boundaries and transformation. And we're looking at it in a collective way. So, the first question that I want to ask tonight is, what's one belief about healing that each of you personally had to unlearn? And we can start with Dr. Rice.
That's an interesting question. One of the things I had to unlearn about healing is the same thing I just really just kind of just taught out loud is it's not good to ignore it. Like ignoring it does not allow you to heal. As a matter of fact, it allows you to suffer longer.
Mm, mhm, mm. What about you, Regina?
I have to say, for me, it's been a level of eliminating this idea of perfection
Mm,
around my health, around how I'm showing up. There is this perfected image, however, people create it just because I'm joyful and delightful all the time, but the reality of it is there is some work that has to be done on a daily basis. And so, um, releasing perfection around if I don't, because there was a time like not working out was not an option. What are you talking about? We're not working out. However, the body needs time to recover, and so starting to release this whole idea about being this perfect image around perfect health. No, I want to be perfectly well.
mm. What about you, Tammy?
For me, I had to unlearn or let go of survivor. So I had to release that part of not being addicted to the chaos. I had to release the part of knowing and telling myself the truth that my issue was is that I was always reactive and never proactive. I had to let go of all of those bad habits in order for me to create some new habits. So letting go of survivor, letting go of the chaos was a lot of a part of what I had to unlearn.
Mm.
Mhm.
What about you,
That's good.
Felicia?
For me, I would say having to let go of the belief that keeping the peace was more important than being honest.
Mm.
There, right there. Because if it's the peace that requires you to be silent and not to speak up and speak out isn't always healthy. It's not going to be healthy. So for me, I would say, yeah, realizing that it's not all about keeping the peace unless you talk about me keeping mine. So
Mm. Mm. You know, what I hear in all of these answers is that healing often requires us to release, the old definition of strength.
Yeah.
Strength is not always remaining silent. It's doing everything alone, or pretending that we're not even affected by some of the things. So I want to go into question number two. Hello there. Can you genuinely heal without boundaries? Why or why not? Let's start with Regina.
Yeah, that's gonna be a no. That's gonna be a hard no.
Yeah.
Because the thing about it is, if you do not set any type of intentional parameters, then all you have is all this other. So where is your healing? You don't even know what's you.
Did we lose Regina? I think she got froze. She may need to go out and come back in, Regina. Are you there?
Oh, is that me?
Okay,
Okay.
yeah.
Were y'all able to hear me? Am I back?
Not quite. I think you're freezing up a little bit.
Let's see. Yeah.
Okay, let's go with Dr. Amanda. How can you genuinely
I would really
can?
say I would say no to to not having boundaries.
Mhm.
And I give an example. The same thing is healing is a pathway. Like it's not an overnight process. It's a road travel. And even when you're traveling on the road, you have boundaries. You go off to the right, you might hit a ditch. You go off to the left, you're gonna run into incoming traffic. So at some
Mhm.
point, you have to have some boundaries to allow you to understand the path you need to take to reach true healing. Because again, it's a process. It's not an overnight thing. It's a path. It's a journey. In order to have that journey, you have to set those boundaries to allow you the opportunity to heal appropriately. Or else, again, we run into the same thing, the same damage over. It's like a repeat record, the same damage over and over again, same break. So definitely, I would say yes, boundaries are necessary.
Mhm. Mhm. What about you, Felicia?
I would say for me, it can be a little bit in between initially.
Mhm.
And I say that because there has to be an important distinction. Okay. You can begin your healing without really, really strong boundaries in place because, you have to learn to do that. And so you can begin your healing without those strong boundaries, but it's going to be harder to sustain that in an environment where you have relationships or people in your circle that keep hurting you and things remain unchanged. So you can start out on your own, but at some point you're going to have to increase and enforce your boundaries for your safety and for your stability in order for you to heal. Okay, so yeah, it's kind of, I guess it's like a growth thing. So it's kind of in between. But you can start out with small ones, but you're going to eventually have to make them a lot stronger and broader.
Mm, mm. What about you, Tamara?
Yeah, I agree, but I do believe that you do have to set boundaries, because healing isn't just a recovery from what hurt you, right? It's learning to how to stop giving unlimited access to you. So, in order to do that, you got to set some boundaries, and you have to make sure you create them, because you don't want those unwanted wounds back at you, right? So you got to set them, and I agree with Felicia. It's a stair step. It's a stair step, of course. However, you have to place them strategically, so to speak,
Yes.
in order for you to officially heal, because those wounds, you know, I think Dr. Rice said this earlier about the wounds, that I was writing down on my little book. There are certain forms of wounds, right? And it heals differently. So you do have to, you got to set them, because they come in different shapes and forms.
Hmm. And that's a whole word for somebody, because we talk about those wounds, because those wounds can be a lot of different things. The wounds could be unforgiveness. It could be forgiveness, because
Mm,
it doesn't always mean, for me, forgiveness doesn't always mean renewed access to me again. And
yeah.
then I think about even wounds of compassion, wounds of self abandonment. There are a lot of
Yes.
things when I look at that word wound, is loving someone who doesn't accept, I'm not accepting all of this different behavior, this different types of behavior that you're giving me, or the behaviors that changed me or had me to change the way, that I now interact with you. Like those wounds, maybe I've had some wounds. Y'all know I did a whole series on those boundaries and unforgiveness and forgiveness. I taught people how I was dancing with red flags, like those red
Mm.
flags. I'm talking about I was dancing with those red flags. My whole
Mhm.
body was covered with red flags. Like I was missing the red flags, but yet the red flags were right there in my face. And so
Yeah.
those
Yep.
boundaries, I
Yep.
had to put
Yep.
boundaries in place.
Right.
And so now when I see it could be just a little of this, and I'm like, no, peace. I don't even want it. I don't
Mhm.
want it. I already know what it feels like. I don't want to go back there ever again. So those
Yes.
boundaries were necessary for me. So the next question that I want to ask is, why do you think people sometimes return to relationships? They return to habits. They return to these old environments that they already know that were harmful to them. Why do people keep returning back to the things that hurt them so much? Let's start with Felicia.
I would say for some, it is familiarity.
Mhm.
You just and accepting of the space. Sometimes they just emotionally and mentally give up and say, "But this is what I know, and I'm used to this, and maybe it won't change." But I'm too afraid to start something new. Too afraid to go out there on my own. So I'll just try to deal with this the best way that I can.
Mhm.
They're familiar. It's like when you go to a hotel on vacation and sleep in that bed, and then you come back home and sleep in yours. It's a whole different thing. Just I would say familiarity draws people back, and also fear. They're afraid of the change. They're afraid of whether or not they can stand up on their own 2 feet and be bold and courageous, and as Tamara said, fix it themselves.
Mhm.
Mhm. Mhm. What about you, Tamara?
I think, um, it is familiar. I will say that, but it's also, I believe we all have a certain expectation, and I think we live on our own expectation, and it becomes a disappointment to ourselves, and we go back because basically we as human beings, we see potential and we're stuck on that potential. And it's not even just the fear, it's us being wrong. It's us living on what we perceived already and what we hope to have. So we don't want to let go of the hope. We don't want
Mm.
to let go of basically what we saw. And the potential is a mug. I'll say mug because I do curse a lot, but it's a mug. And we see a potential in anyone, and we don't see anything else because we have that much faith in whatever we saw, and we don't want to be wrong. We want to be stuck on that, and then we are committed to the time. We're committed to the time we spent. We're committed to a whole lot of things, and especially if you that strong person, right? We don't want to be not necessarily wrong, but we give a lot of exceptions to other people before we give that exception to ourselves, right? So we put too much into the hopes of something, and we will not let it go. Hope is something that lives in us. It's taught, and we live through hope a lot. And we it's hard to let hope go. It's in our faith. So if we beginning something with the expectation of hope, it's very difficult to let that go.
Mm. What about you, Regina? One of the questions that we just asked, it was, I think you were coming in on it, and I want to make sure that you hear it. Why do people sometimes return to relationships, to habits, to old environments that they know that were harmful to them in the past?
What I'll say is, and Felicia, our doctor, mentioned it, and that is familiarity breeds comfort. And because I'm so familiar with this thing, I trust this thing. And then two is, I know this thing. And unfortunately, people have this mindset, I'd rather stay with the devil I know than the devil I don't know. Well, if it's a devil, either way it go, you don't need to be with the devil. And so a lot of times it just comes back to individuals not having a safe space to where they can be transparent and vulnerable, work through some stuff so that they know they can survive and thrive outside of that chaotic, toxic environment. And I'm not even talking about uh, romantic relationships. I'm talking about all types of environments, including again our health habits. It's easy to go back to what I know than to stretch myself and do something different. It's just so comfortable. But when we have real communities where we're held accountable and supported in a new way, in a different way, that's going to challenge you to your higher self because you can do better than what you're doing, because all you've been told is that you can only do this. This is all you've seen. If this is all you've seen, it's all you see, but it's not all you're supposed to see.
Mm, mm. What about you, Dr. Amanda?
Regina didn't preach that part. Listen, so I think it's a combination of kind of all the things that I see. So one, I was gonna say comfort, uh, the the fear of being uncomfortable, honestly, and so it's a little bit of fear of being uncomfortable in a different space and then not being able to see what's next. So the example sometimes is we don't realize that we're often the best place to grow is when we're uncomfortable. And so we're afraid to step out of a familiar situation because we don't know what's going to happen next. So we
Mm,
stay where we're comfortable. And I always give the example of the same. If you think about how a butterfly starts out, they're in a cocoon. That thing looks uncomfortable as hell.
mhm,
But here's the interesting thing about a butterfly and about the caterpillar that a lot of people may not know is that when they're in a cocoon, if somebody else breaks it, they die. But if
mm,
they stay in there and struggle long enough and keep hitting on the cocoon, it makes their wings stronger so they can bust out on their own and become a butterfly. So a lot of times we don't realize that our uncomfortableness is actually building strength, and we thinking it's making us weak and not knowing what's going to come next. So I definitely think it's being uncomfortable. Sometimes being uncomfortable is the best way to be stronger.
Hmm. I believe that too. Yeah, I think we all said that familiarity, it can feel safer than uncertainty. That's what I heard all of us say, even when what is familiar, even if it's unhealthy. Like we just go back to familiarity. And that's why healing requires more than just recognizing the patterns, because we need new tools, we need new support, we need, new environments. We need all of that, in order to go forward, in our healing journey. And I heard somebody say something about the healing is way long. What did you say, Tad and MD? You said something about the healing, the journey.
Oh, the journey is longer than it's not overnight. It's a
Yes, it's
path.
not overnight. Yes, yes, yes. So listen, let's go into another part of the segment where we did have a question that was asked over on one of the other sites. And one of those questions is, whenever I feel hurt or emotionally unsafe in my relationship, says I shut down, I stop communicating, and I become emotionally unavailable. My partner feels abandoned, but I feel as though I am protecting myself. How can I stop allowing old trauma to damage a relationship that I want to keep?
Mm.
Who
Doesn't
want to
matter who
tackle that?
takes.
Who want to tackle that one first?
um, the let me say the thing that really stands out to me in that question is she asks about a relationship that I really want to keep. That stands out to me. So if you really want to keep this relationship, count what costs you're willing to pay for it. First of all, if that means I really want to keep this relationship, and I see and acknowledge I have this trauma that I'm dealing with. So am I willing to go to talk to someone about that? And am I willing to go get to talk to a therapist about what is going on with me, to help me do the work and to dig into where this is coming from, to pull it up by the root? Because I really want this relationship.
Mm.
So what cost to me am I willing to pay to have this relationship? I think that would be the first thing that she would need to ask. Consider what it is that you want to pay to have what you want.
Ooh. Ooh. Mm-hmm. What are you willing to pay? Mm. What about you, Dr. Man? You want to tackle it or you want to go?
I had to remember to take it off mute. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, ask me the question again. I'm sorry. I was listening. I didn't got caught up in Felicia.
Okay. So this is what she asked. How can I stop allowing the old trauma to damage a relationship that I want to keep?
Mm. Well, I'm gonna answer like the old Amanda. Okay. Because the new Amanda
Okay.
is literally like grown from the old Amanda. So
Mhm.
the old Amanda was how do I first of all we had to understand what the trauma is. You gotta recognize what the trauma is. We always assume that trauma is has to be something detrimental, but detrimental like really severe. But trauma is anything that affects my safety. And it doesn't have to be physical safety. It could be my mental safety. It can be my spiritual safety, but anything that affects my safety. So how to be able to come from that is how to not let that affect you or move away from that. Honestly, again, go back to setting boundaries based off of where do you feel safe. So that's the old Amanda. I'm not gonna tell you what the new Amanda do.
Okay. Okay. What about you, Regina?
I was singing over here. Go to the therapist. Go to the therapist. And
Okay.
so I say that because there is a desire there. And when someone feels abandoned, what will they then do? So when you think about what Felicia said in terms of counting the cost, that's the value there. When you count the cost, it's not going to be comfortable, but you say that you want this relationship, then I'm going to take the necessary steps. First of all, we're going to have a conversation, and I need to acknowledge and say, you know what? I got some stuff that I've not worked through, and I apologize that I'm putting you in this position to make you feel abandoned, to make you feel unwanted. But I do want you in my space. Are you okay with going if they need to go together sometime? But there are some things that I need to work on. And this is what it's going to look like. So 2 or 3 days a week, I'm going to be going to talk to somebody. That is going to be one of the only ways that she can move past this old stuff keeps showing up today that is going to run off your Boaz, and somebody else going to be mounting him up over there, Vashti. He gonna have an Esther, and you're gonna be real unhappy and unwell, and you're disappointed with yourself. But I would just encourage you to do the work by saying, I just acknowledge, I got some stuff I need to work on, and I need to go see Felicia.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What about you, Tam?
I agree with Regina, and that's exactly where I was going. I think you have to notice your early warning signs, though, too, and you do have to you have to pause, and you do have to say what you're experiencing before you disappear. So if it's just that right in initial right before and just explaining, hey, I need 30 minutes, and I need 30 minutes to kind of calm down or figure this out or go see my therapist or whatever that is, but acknowledge it, as opposed to just disappearing all on its own. Communicate that, and then I feel like it's very important to separate your feelings from a decision, and you have to initially just jump into that part. And I know it's very difficult because your emotions are going and everything is just all rampant, but try to pause for that second and separate the two. You have to separate the two. And if that is just pausing and saying I need to come back to this later, that's what you do. Especially when you're in the heat of the moment, and you have to practice that. You have to practice staying present during the little small moments. So it could be just a little small disagreement, but practice that part with saying, hey, maybe we need to pause. I know, you know how I am. I shut down real quick. Give me about 5 minutes. I am acknowledging the fact that I do have an issue in this part, but I am working at this. So give me 5 minutes. Let me come to this. Let me figure out what I need to do, and I'll be back. Don't worry, I'm because I want to save. I want to save this, but I have to figure out what that is, and get the help, girl. Get the help. You need to see someone professionally to help you decipher that and help you communicate that, but acknowledging that to your person, um, I think will be received, especially if they're telling you that they feel abandoned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would also add to that, it's going to require some counseling, uh, honest, open and honest communication. I'm very big on communication in order to rebuild any type of, I think Dr. Manda said something about the safety,
Hmm.
even in rebuilding emotional safety. You've got to have open communication, and you have to learn what triggers you to withdraw, like
Yeah.
those triggers. There are some triggers that causes you to have those withdrawals, and so then you'll have to gradually create these healthier experiences with affection. uh, every partnership does not have the same type of affections. I guess they say those the same type of what's the book that's out, the love language books,
Love
like
language.
everybody does, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, everybody does not have the same type of affection, the same type of intimacy,
Exactly.
vulnerability, and even trust. And so I would
Mhm.
say, yeah, it's going to require some counseling, but you got to have an honest and open communication, with
Yeah.
your partner, your significant other. So as we move along, there's one suggested audience question over here about healing and love. And so, how do I know whether I am fighting for a relationship that can be healed or holding on to something that continuously harms me?
Mm.
Mm.
You gotta ask yourself.
How do I-
That's the question I start with it. You have to ask yourself that. So if you had to ask yourself,
Yeah.
Mhm,
am I fighting for a relationship that harms me, or is this for healing?
Mm.
It's probably harming you.
Mm.
mhm,
Mm. Mhm.
And that's just more of the, because it's something you see that you're not acknowledging yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see it.
And she already knows the answer.
Yeah.
mhm,
You
Mm.
got to face it.
Mhm.
You know the answer.
Mhm.
You know the answer to that.
mhm,
So now you got to be brave enough to look in the mirror and say it to yourself
Mhm.
and decide what your next step is because you know the answer.
mhm,
I think it's going back to what all you ladies said, and it's you're being comfortable, right? She's comfortable,
Mhm.
and it's going to be difficult for her to be uncomfortable. But I love
Yeah.
that butterfly analogy. I'm just going to go ahead and throw that out there. But um, you were spot on, Amanda, as far as that is a part, and it has to probably go back being that cocoon. And she asks the question, so she more than likely knows the answer,
She does.
but she's going to have to face the truth and have those self talks with herself and ask herself, why am I still staying here? And what is uncomfortable? Am I really comfortable, or I'm just comfortable with being uncomfortable? Because
Hmm.
you're more than likely uncomfortable in the
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
You're just comfortable with being in it because
Yeah.
this is what you're used to being in, and this is your form of love. And it comes back to you giving yourself back that self love and giving yourself that time that you need to commit to yourself to make those clear understandings, the clear decisions for yourself.
And
And
she
can
she
I just
mentioned.
add? Go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
Regina.
She mentioned, um, "Am I fighting for something that's going to keep hurting?" So it's already there. And so I would
Mm-hmm.
just say your next step is to create your exit plan, whatever that looks like for you. Create your exit plan and an enter plan. Now I want to enter into a different space. But the beautiful queen already has the answer. And so we're just affirming what she already has told herself and what she already understands. And so we stand with you in acknowledging that it is a decision, as my sister Tam said, that pausing and saying, what is my next step? And so my thought is create your intentional 30-day exit plan. Give that thing an expiration date. Stop playing with your life.
Yeah.
Give it an expiration date. The sooner you identify your expiration date, you're starting working on your exit plan so that you can enter into the next phase of your healing. And that's
Mm-hmm.
your entry plan, enter plan.
Mm-hmm.
I was just
Ladies,
gonna add. It sounds like she is also operating from a place of desire. Okay, so just because we desire a thing is not what God has desired for you.
mm,
You desire it, but that's not what God has desired for you.
Mm-hmm.
But you want it so bad to turn around and work out.
mm,
But is it worth you being torn down, verbally, emotionally beat down, and you crawl out that door. Because you can physically leave, but when you do, you also have to deal with, how am I going to emotionally leave?
Mhm.
You desire to emotionally stay and to physically stay, but you want it different. But your desire may not be what's best for what God has for you. So pray on it, and let Him give you your strategy of what and when. Because one thing we know for sure, that nothing that comes from God is going to cost you that.
Mm.
Nothing that comes from God is going to cause you that. And so you want the best of things. You want to live your life abundantly, above all you can ever ask or think. The situation you are in right now is not it. That is not it.
And
So
and I just
pray
want
on
to
it
back.
and prepare.
I back Felicia, and this one little thing I just need to remind you about healing too. If every time you go back to the situation, a wound does not heal if you keep picking at it.
Does not.
Mm.
Does not. It can't.
Yeah.
It no matter how much you pray, fast, journal, meditate,
Mm-mm.
cry, plead, beg. As long as you stay around those people or places that harm you, you will not heal. You will not get the strength you need to stand up on your own 2 feet and walk boldly and courageous out of that door with the strength and courage to say, you know what? I know I'm gonna have to dig my way through this valley, but I'm willing to do it. I gotta start.
Mhm. And I want to say that you can learn new tools. You can develop healthier patterns. You can communicate
Yes.
differently. Once you exit,
Yes.
exit, you can rebuild trust in yourself, because she doesn't have trust in herself.
Right.
That's the only way you're going to be able to rebuild trust in yourself. You have to exit. You have to exit so that you can rebuild in your trust. You have to get from around, out of the environment, out of the toxicity, out of that space that is causing the harm, the damage. You got to get out of that space so that you can rebuild that trust. And you can experience healthy love, without abandoning who you are. Ladies, I
Mm.
want to thank you so much. Before we get ready
Thank
to
you.
end, I want you guys to let the audience know where they can find you on social media and beyond. If there are any special events that you are a part of, we would love to hear that. So we'll start with Felicia.
Oh, thank you. Let me first of all thank you so much for the honor of talking on your platform and having this discussion with these amazing women. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So, what do I have coming up tomorrow? As a matter of fact, I have Safe Space Part 3. My Youth and Teen Theater Therapy Foundation's mental health discussion. And so we have been talking about boys don't cry, emphasis on do. And we have been discussing mental health challenges around emotions and around that old saying of man up. Men don't do this and boys don't do that. And so we've been having a conversation about that in partnership with the Mississippi Humanities Council on a book called Anger is a Gift. So it's teaching them how they can take their emotions and use it to be a voice and something positive in advocacy. So that is tomorrow at Mega Evers Library at 10 a.m. It's a free event. We would just ask if you would sign up on Eventbrite. And then on the 15th of August, I have my theater therapy event that I say is for the grown folks or for the adults. And that is called Somebody, Anybody Listen. We're going to be presenting a theater script reading under the topic or subject of teen suicide and what that looks like, faith-based communities and also in homes where it's always about just pray about it and you'll be better. So that is going to be August the 15th at 10 a.m. at the Charity Event Center in Jackson. We are definitely extending an invitation to all of you ladies in your audience to come out to participate with our Champagne Theater Brunch.
What about you, the tatted MD?
Oh, I still had to look down and see if I'm on mute. First of all, again, thank you all. I enjoyed tonight. Again, being amongst them. I always, like I said, I love being around us, um, in a powerful conversation tonight. But yes, I have several things coming up. I think Miss Regina on half of them with me. So, but we have actually coming up. It's called Cultivating Me. It's actually Girl Get Up. It's a conference for women's faith-based conference in Vicksburg, and it actually will be on September the 12th. Right? Yes, September the 12th, in the evening from 12 to 4. I'll be one of the panelists on there, actually talking about healing, health, and then my own personal journey and story. My story has a whole lot of chapters. Yeah, it's so many. And then, and then we also will be a part of the She Project. I think that's the one that Regina is on with us as well. I'm still not her glory, but I know she can handle it. August the 14th, which it is going to be a jam-packed day of some powerful women. Let me tell you, I get the honor of starting it off at 8:30, so I gotta have some good coffee uh, as we get ready to prepare for a whole day on how to heal and talk about our health as Black women. And that's coming up, like I said, on August the 14th. That started 8:30 until 3 o'clock. And then I also, of course, you're all event. I'm sure you're going to announce that yourself on October the 31st. Looking forward to that as well. But how you can find me is typically on Facebook as Amanda Rice, the Tatted MD. I'm also on Instagram and on TikTok as at the Tatted MD as well. And I'm on LinkedIn as Amanda Rice, MD. And you can also put in the Tatted MD. It also find me as well. For email, I actually have a consulting company called Inspiring Impact Consulting. Is LLC, so it's called Inspiring Impact LLC at gmail.com. And in that process, I actually do different coaching. As far as a lot of people don't know, I'm actually a lifestyle and habit coach, which has helped me quite a bit with conversations with my patients. But we have coaching sessions, and then also do motivational speaking engagements. And then, of course, if you want to find a good physician, I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm not taking new patients. But you can find, but I don't, I say that, but I really, my nurse know I always take new people, but I only say that because realistically, I do work at University of Mississippi Medical Center where I am a physician, as well as now associate program director for the family medicine department. So only
Nice.
the black and
Congratulations.
so only the second black female with that position. So,
Congratulations.
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. So,
Wow.
that's where you'll find me on my regular work day.
Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
Regina?
Yes, thank you again for this awesome opportunity to be in here and share this space to have this authentic, deep, and real conversation. You can find me every Friday on Figured Out Fridays at 6 o'clock a.m. Central Standard Time, where we pull up in the Coaches Cafe for Recovering the Recoverable. That's where we explore the science, the behaviors, and the everyday behaviors that help us to live healthier, fuller lives. I'm on Instagram, Regina Lacking, Facebook, as well as LinkedIn, Regina Lacking. But my YouTube channel is Doing Life Well with Regina. Additionally, I'm a licensed food for life instructor, and so I do live cooking demonstrations, plant-based cooking demonstrations to teach communities that healthful eating to prevent chronic health conditions is affordable and it's doable and it's tasteful as well. And then, as well, I have my own business, Doing Life Well Integrative Health and Consulting, where I do partner with organizations, clinics, as well as individuals to do that same preventative work. I have a 5-week intensive as well as a 3-month program that I work on those elements: your diet, your decisions, influences, your environment, and your thinking. And I'm not just talking about diet, what's on your plate. So that's how folks can keep up with me. Upcoming things that I have, I will be speaking as well at the Mississippi Black Women's Health Conference next Friday in Jackson, Mississippi, the Mississippi East Center. September the 12th, I will be in New Orleans, Louisiana, speaking and partnering with Heart and Health NOLA with Essence. So I'm looking looking forward to that as well. I know people love New Orleans, so that will be a great event to come and be a part of, the 11th and the 12th in New Orleans, Louisiana, partnering with Heart in Hands. And that's an organization that targets young girls 10 to 18 around cardiovascular disease. If you need support in mitigating your chronic health condition, the big four, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol, or if you're carrying excess weight, the plant-based boss is here to walk alongside you. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
You're very welcome. Sam, close us out.
All right, I'm Tamara Clark. I'm your transformation homegirl. So my calendar isn't as full as the wonderful ladies that I'm have the pleasure of joining tonight. And before I even throw all of my spill out, Coach Takenya, I appreciate the opportunity to being on this platform. Truly appreciate it. My next event that I will be doing, I'll be doing a book crawl in Georgia. I'm a moderator for next week, which is, I believe, on the 17th. Is that the 17th or the 15th? 15th of August. So I'll be part of that event. I have a workshop that'll be coming that we'll be creating at the end of the year that will be announced. But you can find me if you need a speaker or a workshop. I am a transformation identity mindset coach. I am located in Georgia, but I'm also located in Jackson, Mississippi as well. You can find me on all social media platforms. Transform with Tam on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. I will be having my live on YouTube, and it'll be going live actually in October. So I look forward to that. And again, it has been such a pleasure and an honor to speak with you all, to just have this lovely conversation.
I want to thank each of these phenomenal women for bringing truth, for bringing wisdom, compassion, practical tools into this sacred space with me tonight. Thank you, Regina Lacking. Thank you, Dr. Amanda Rice. That's the Tatted MD. Thank you, Felicia Kelly Brookins, for reminding us that our voices and our story matters. And thank you again to my homegirl. That's the transformation homegirl. That's Tamara Clark, for helping us to confront burnout, to rebuild capacity and return back to ourselves. Ladies, thank you for saying yes to this vision and for being aligned with the mission for helping humanity to heal. To everyone who joined us tonight on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, thank you for hanging in here with me tonight. I know you heard these beautiful voices, but you saw my lovely face. And I want to thank you guys. Thank you, Milia, for sending in all of that information that I asked you to. Thank you so much. Thank you for my listening audience at Takenya K Worldwide Podcast. And remember that healing is not always a straight line, that sometimes the moments, it takes a lot of progress. It's moments of grief. It's moments of some rest. It's moments that we must begin over. You know, we have to start over sometimes, again and again. It's beginning again. And sometimes it may look like failure, but it is progress. It is like, I guess the Tatted says, you got some notches under your belt now. You know, you don't have to start, you know, from that building, from that wood, as Tam says. You don't have to put that new plywood down. You got some stuff under your belt now. Continue to seek a safe space. Continue to be advised with wise counsel for professional help if you need to seek it. There's support out there for you. There are healthy communities that will back you up. There are people who will honor your vulnerability without exploiting you. So your story matters. Your health matters. Your healing matters. Your next chapter still has the potential to become your best chapter. I am certified transformation life coach, international speaker, author, and business owner, Takenya K. Johnson. Thank you again, ladies, for joining me on Healing's Mic Live and for representing Takenya K. Worldwide Podcast. Part 2 of the Healing Mics Live. I'll see you in the morning at 10 a.m. This is an in-person workshop clinic. The location has been sent out to all of those who subscribed and paid their fees. I'll see you in the morning at 10 a.m. September and October, I will present Rosebuds Glow. This is affirming girls. This is a 10-week session. This is every Saturday starting in September and the month of October. This is a 30-minute Zoom. You can call in or you can join us on Zoom. This is where we affirm girls between the ages of 7 and 18. I have some phenomenal speakers that are coming in for these real conversations about helping our girls to grow, to mature, to become blossoming adults. Good night, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Kenny K Worldwide Podcast. Good night.